So today we're explaining the Social Security Fairness Act, which was signed into law by Biden in the around New Year's Eve, somewhere around there, right around the first of the year. This was a bipartisan bill, and in a gist, what it was doing is it was giving back Social Security benefits to people that were exempted from Social Security or they didn't pay in for certain amounts. And it's really coming from government pensions if they were under non-covered work, like federal workers, certain states like Texas and California, teachers, public employees that qualify for a pension going way, way back. They didn't also pay into Social Security. Then when they went to file for Social Security, there were penalties or reductions in their Social Security. And so the windfall elimination period, the government pension offset. And so what we're doing today is a lot of people just missed this in the news. Some people watched it. You may have watched it or seen about it. Said, it doesn't apply to me. Don't really want to look at it. And so we're just giving some clarity on this today. I want to put it to Tom and talk about why we're doing this video.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this video because on our channel and on our shows, we often talk about taxes and how do we reduce that. And, you know, the more you get to keep, the better off you are. This is a situation where they passed a law that actually puts more money back in your pocket if you qualify, if you are impacted by these provisions. And so we just want to give you some details about this and walk you through who qualifies, how it helps them and stuff. But this is a benefit for people who are subject to this. So let me bring up the show notes. We'll go through those pretty quickly and then we'll get into some examples here. And so we have the board. As always, you can find this at the link below our video. It's also on our website at cardinalguide.com. Again, we just have more information about the different provisions. Again, I don't want to spend too long defining what the government pension offset is. We'll get a little bit into that in the example. Also, the windfall elimination provision. You can read all about it if you want. At the end of the day, the Social Security Fairness Act got rid of these. So it no longer matters what these are, but I think it's helpful to understand what they are to determine if you were impacted by this and then what that means moving forward. So you can read more about them there. And then we have the two examples we'll go over on the board here in a second, just a little bit more in detail in the show notes. And so if you want more information, go read it. It walks you through some of the math, which is a little bit complicated. But at the end of the day, I think this will be a benefit. If you were subject to this will be a real benefit to you by removing these provisions. And so let me turn it back to Hans. We'll go through a couple points on the board, and we'll get into some real examples. So I think that will make it a little more clear to understand.
Yeah, so this new provision, this new law was just thrown at the Social Security Administration at the beginning of January. So if you haven't already heard from them, you're going to be hearing from Social Security if this affects you. And if it's affected you for many years, now you're probably not going to be hearing from them if you haven't filed for Social Security yet. But if you're on Social Security and you've been affected by this, you're going to hear from them. And I'm not sure that they know exactly at the filming of this video exactly what they're going to do. But what they're going to need to pay is benefits back to January 1st, 2024. So the people that are affected are going to get a check for, basically 12 months of the increase. And then they're going to elevate your Social Security if some of it was taken away. So let's just talk a little bit and put in some terms. The Windfall Elimination Provision, WEP, and GPO, Government Pension Offset, reduce your Social Security benefit for retirees who receive pension payments from non-Social Security covered employer. And I'm sure some of you are reading this, well, we ought to take it away if they never paid into it. And then if they never paid into it, now they're collecting this pension that they did pay into, and then they also are getting their Social Security taken away. Well, it's not that exact. There's many people covered by this, but then they earn Social Security elsewhere. So we don't want to get into the details of it too much. This is just telling you what it is, and it applies to your own benefit, and it also applies to the spousal benefit. So if your spouse is collecting or going to collect based on your work record, and then your spouse was covered under a non-Social Security pension, that can have a big effect on that. Now, the Social Security Fairness Act just repealed the GPO and the WEP. And so what I want to do now is just push it back to Tom, and Tom can go over a couple of examples where this applies to real people.
Yeah, and I think it's real important to understand one of the statements that Hans made just a second ago is who this applies to is if you work for an employer that you did not pay Social Security taxes in and you're receiving a pension from them. So it is a specific subset of the population that is subject to this. But if this isn't you, you might know somebody, right? There might be a brother, a sister, a cousin, someone who could be impacted by this. And so I still want you to listen through this and just understand what's there. So let's get into the examples. This example on the left side of the board is it was a couple who came in, and the wife was a teacher, had been a teacher her whole life. They were specifically in Texas. Certain Texas state employees did not pay into Social Security. Their pensions are higher than other states, but that's sort of how you get there. But she had been a teacher her whole life. Had not paid into any Social Security, was not eligible for any Social Security benefits under her own working history. On the other hand, her husband did work in the private sector, had a nice Social Security check, and they were sitting down and we were helping them plan, and they were trying to figure out what to do with his Social Security. Now, if you've watched any of our shows, you know oftentimes we're talking about delaying Social Security. Let's wait till 70. Let's get the highest benefit. Your spouse will get the spousal benefit, and then once you pass, they'll get the survivor benefit. They'll get the higher check. And again, we have other shows on that. But with this couple, they're saying, hey, listen, that extra piece doesn't really apply to us. Like the survivor benefits or the spousal benefits, it doesn't matter because she has this pension that is going to reduce it. And so I'll give you some of the numbers here. She was eligible for a pension from the state of about $3,700, almost $3,800 a month is what she was going to receive when she retired. And then the husband at his full retirement age was eligible for a Social Security check of just over $3,300 a month. And so if you didn't know anything about this and you'd seen some of our shows, you would say, okay, she's eligible because she doesn't have Social Security, but she's eligible for the spousal benefit, which is half of his benefit, which would have been $1,600, just over $1,600 for her, which is great. However, before before the Social Security Fairness Act, she would have been subject to the government pension offset that affects survivors, specific or spouses. And so what they do is they take 2/3 of her pension and reduce whatever her Social Security check would have been. So they said, okay, yes, you're eligible for the spousal benefit, $1,600, but you also receive a pension, so we're going to reduce the Social Security. At the end of the day, they were planning, and we were planning, that she would get no benefit from Social Security based off her pension. And so that's why both of them are alive. And then that follows through to even once he is passed. And she now, again, if you didn't know anything about this, she would have been eligible for his full check as the survivor of a couple. But because of the pension, that would have been reduced as well by her pension. And so that was what we were planning. We were going through all this. We were mapping that all out. They come around, they pass this act. This is a real benefit for them because now when both of them are alive and he files for Social Security, and now she gets a spousal benefit. So their monthly income from a planning standpoint has just been increased by over $1,600 a month. So it is really meaningful for what their plan looks like moving forward. And then furthermore, it brings in if he were to predecease her, she also gets his full Social Security check and her pension. So they're in a much better situation now because of the passing of this act. And so that's specific to the GPO. Now, where this can be really important for you if you're listening is a lot of times people in this scenario, they never filed for their spousal benefits because they knew they weren't going to get anything. Say, okay, well, if I'm not going to get anything, why should I go through the hassle of putting in an application to Social Security, them taking a look, and then I just don't get anything? I just won't worry about it. Which makes sense, right? I understand. I don't know that I would have filed if in that same scenario. However, now that they've passed this, you do need to go file for your spousal benefit because they don't even know about you in really any way. So they're not going to send you a letter about this. Now, if you did file for Social Security and your check is being reduced, they know about that. They will automatically update that. But for the people who have not filed, you need to go file for spousal benefits. And like Hans mentioned, they will pay you retroactively back to January 1st of 2024. So again, you probably should get on that pretty quickly. So that's the GPO example. Hans, any thoughts on that before I go to the next one?
It's just going to be, I mean, especially when he passes, which we're looking at all the time. If he passes before her, she's going to be getting her pension and his full Social Security benefit, even the delayed portion. And so that's a planning positive affecting everything else we're doing for these people. So we got to go back and redo some stuff for them.
Yep, that's exactly right. So let's go to the second example. This is around the windfall elimination provision. Again, the math on this is even more complicated, so I'm not going to get into how they come up with these numbers. If you want to read the show notes, you can see how it works. But again, it doesn't really matter because they've repealed it. It doesn't exist anymore. But again, I want to give you the example just so you can say, hey, that sounds like me. This affects me, so you know how this works. And so we have a lady. She was also a teacher. This happens to a lot of teachers that are subject to this. She was in California. So again, not every state teacher does this. Like here in North Carolina, if you're a teacher, you paid into Social Security, so you get your pension and your Social Security. This doesn't apply to you. But if you're in a state that this is impactful, you need to know about it. And so in this example, Maria, she was a teacher for most of her career, but before she became a teacher, she worked in the private sector. So she actually did pay in to Social Security, qualified for a check under her own working history. She was not married, so she was single, and a pension. So she qualified for both. And so you say that kind of sounds a little bit like this. The difference is she qualified for both under her own working history. But essentially what she was eligible for was a $2,000 pension from the state, as well as without any reduction, $1,500 from Social Security. So she was looking at a monthly income of $3,500 between the two. However, before the passing of this act, they would have reduced her Social Security check from $1,500 down to just over $500. So it was a reduction of $1,000 a month because of the pension that she's receiving from a job that she didn't pay Social Security taxes on. Now, once they've passed this act, her Social Security gets bumped up to the full amount she's eligible for of $1,500. If she had waited further than her full retirement age, it would have received those delayed retirement credits. It would have been a higher number than that. And so now she gets her full Social Security check that she paid taxes for, and she gets her pension, which she worked hard for that. And so effectively, she's getting a increase of her monthly income of about $1,000 a month. Again, very impactful for her. And so again, if you're subject to this and you've sort of written off Social Security, you never filed for it, I mean, for whatever reason, you need to go take action. You need to file for it. You need to update your planning. If you haven't filed for these benefits yet, you're still working, but you're getting close to retirement, and you're thinking about what this looks like, this materially changes how you need to think through your income. If you have questions, give us a call. We can walk you through the numbers. We can come up with a plan that makes the most sense for you. But again, at the end of the day, this was a really good thing for the people who are subject to this. They're going to get an increase from Social Security, and so they're going to be in a better spot than they were previously before the passing of this act. One of the downsides, and it doesn't impact it hugely, but we do need to at least point this out, is this does put more of a strain on the Social Security system at large. And so, because this is a net negative to the cash flow of Social Security, more money's going out than was before, and so that will put a higher strain on the trust fund. Again, our expectation is they will do something to shore up Social Security. We'll just have to wait to see what that looks like. But this does put a little bit of more of a strain on the system than was there previously.
Okay, so what these two examples, Bill and his wife and Maria, show is we start with Social Security with just about everybody that comes in when we're doing financial plans. Is we're looking at what Social Security can we anticipate if you haven't filed yet. We can give you advice on when you should file, when your spouse should file, replace that income if we're going to delay out of your other money. That's where the 401k and IRA comes into play is, if we have somebody that was counting on that income at 65 and retire early, and then they've got a pot of money that's over here, they want us to plan that out. We can show delayed Social Security, and then we can take an income from now till 70 out of the 401k IRA. So I don't want to get too deep into it, but we're touching on most of these subjects. Estate planning. I mean, the first benefactor of an estate with a married couple is the survivor of the two. Is when the first one dies, an estate is created, and there's an income reduction with Social Security, and we're taking that into account. Obviously, we're talking about income because Social Security is the base income in all of the retirement plans that we do. We haven't really talked too much today about taxes, but in a lot of the planning we're doing, we're trying to pay the least amount of taxes we can on Social Security by planning out all these decisions and planning where the other income comes from. So we've touched on all those subjects in the terms of comprehensive planning. I want to bring Tom back on. I'm Hans Scheil,
And I'm Tom Griffith.
and I thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.